feel about gaming disorder. Playing video games can be an immersive hobby, but if gaming interferes negatively with your life, you may have internet gaming disorder. As a gamer, it is easy to find yourself spending hours playing one of your favorite video games, from World of Warcraft and Fortnite to Candy Crush. But there is a difference between gaming, a fun, enriching hobby, and excessive gaming that negatively impacts your life. The latter is known as internet gaming disorder, IGD. Knowing the symptoms of this compulsive behavior can ensure that your hobby is healthy and not potentially problematic. Is video game addiction real? Gaming disorder is a mental health condition that involves compulsive playing of video games that significantly interferes with your ability to function in important areas like school, work, or personal life over an extended period. The World Health Organization, WHO, recognized internet gaming disorder, a diagnosable mental health condition, in its International Classification of Diseases, 11th revision, ICD-11, in 2018. Internet gaming disorder is also the only behavioral addiction, or excessive behavioral pattern, listed under Section 3 of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, DSM-5. IGD is considered a non-substance-related addiction disorder, a subtype of internet addiction disorder. The DSM-5 does not classify IGD as a formal diagnosis, though, due to the current lack of evidence to support it as a unique condition. There is a consensus among clinicians and researchers around gaming disorder, or the DSM-5's diagnostic criteria. There is an ongoing debate over what the line separating highly engaged gaming, problematic gaming should be, and whether IGD pathologizes normal teen behavior. Some academic commentary trusted source calls the criteria laid out by the DSM-5 both constraining and lacking clarity. But this doesn't make it any less valid for those who live with obsessive and overwhelming compulsions to play video games. In fact, it can feel just as real as any other addiction, says psychotherapist Hanley Banks Callahan, LPC, MA of the Zilker Center, a teen mental health center that primarily focuses on gaming disorders. It can prevent people from doing daily tasks, whole jobs, relationships, and really consume them. Gaming disorder symptoms, WHO, DSM-5. In the US ICD-11 and the American Psychiatric Association's DSM-5, internet gaming disorder is characterized by the following behaviors, lasting 12 months or longer. Lack of control over time spent gaming. Prioritizing gaming over other interests, important tasks, and daily responsibilities. Continued or escalated gaming despite negative consequences. Significantly impaired functioning in personal, family, social, work or school life. Denying or concealing gaming habits or amount of time spent playing. Using video games to escape negative emotions. If the above symptoms are severe, the ICD-11 says a diagnosis can be made sooner than 12 months. The ICD-11 also notes that gaming behavior can be online or offline, one of the points some clinicians and academics call confusing. According to Olivia Grace, a clinical psychologist who specializes in therapy for video game addiction at the Mindful Gamer, other symptoms of internet gaming disorder include obsessive thinking about video or internet games, loss of interest in other hobbies or activities, poor work performance and strained relationships, poor concentration or motivation, lack of social engagement outside of gaming communities, symptoms of anxiety or depression, isolation, decline in physical health and hygiene, digital eye strain or repetitive strain injuries, Grace adds that someone with IGD may not exhibit all of these symptoms, and they may vary in intensity for different people. But if compulsive gaming is having a significant negative impact on their life, then it may be time to take action. Connection to mental health and other effects. A 2012 literature review found evidence that excessive gaming is associated with various mental health conditions, including depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. It is unclear whether gaming disorder causes these mental health conditions, or vice versa. Some people may use video games as a coping method to help them deal with the symptoms of a primary diagnosis, like anxiety or depression. In these cases, effective treatment for the primary mental health conditions may improve any issues that arise around gaming. The 2012 review also looked at neuroimaging studies on IGD and found excessive gaming increased brain activity in regions typically associated with addiction. It also concludes that IGD might cause neuroadaptation, meaning brain structure function changes. A 2017 study trusted source indicated that transgender people who engage in problematic gaming are typically younger, with depression and interpersonal problems. Poor mental health is also commonly associated with gamers who meet the criteria of IGD compared to gamers who don't meet the compulsion threshold, according to a 2021 study trusted source. But as with related mental health conditions, it is not clear if there is a cause and effect. Potential causes. Several factors can cause gaming to go from hobby to compulsion or internet gaming disorder. Dopamine desensitization. It is not so much the games that are addictive but the act of playing, and its effect on our brains. This is because video games are extremely stimulating and cause high levels of dopamine to release when playing. Grace explains that this increased dopamine feels good to the gamer in the moment, but can lead to their brain receptors becoming desensitized after time. So they must play more for longer hours to feel the same level of satisfaction they once used to. Escapism. Gamers often play to escape stress or distract themselves from other tough emotions or real-life problems. Gaming has the unique ability to immerse an individual and distract them from these sensations from the comfort of their own home, says Grace. When people with compulsions can't deal with their negative emotions, they get overwhelmed and resort to playing video games again, and the cycle continues, she says, noting that this escapism can exacerbate existing issues. Escapism is seen in both highly engaged and problematic gaming and isn't necessarily a harmful coping strategy. A 2016 study found that escapism can be a positive coping mechanism, providing a forum to relieve stress and build self-confidence. Sense of belonging. Multiplayer gaming is a great way to build communities and virtually connect with like-minded people. This is especially true if you are naturally introverted or feel anxious in offline social settings. As humans, our need for social interaction has to be satisfied, and video games offer this without having to meet face-to-face, says Grace. The anonymity of interacting online makes it very appealing to those who are shy or suffer from social anxiety. Identity factors. Gaming disorder can affect folks of all genders and ages. But neuroimaging studies outlined in a 2018 study suggest that males have a genetic predisposition to be more susceptible to compulsive gaming. In summary, it explains that the areas of the brain that respond to the addictive qualities of gaming, such as reward-based behaviors, show more activity in males than in females, says Grace. Instant gratification. Video games create challenges that are achievable and consistent, which shortcut and distract us from important goals outside of gaming, says Grace, noting that humans tend to feel good when finishing tasks. She explains that gaming can be addictive because we are instantly gratified for completing these in-game achievements. This reward system ultimately leads to reinforced behavior, e.g., more gaming. Management and treatment. Support is available for folks with gaming disorder or an unhealthy relationship with gaming. Therapy. Working with a therapist can help you find the root cause of obsessive gaming and offer helpful coping skills to better manage compulsions that come up. A 2018 study trusted source suggested that cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) can be an effective approach for reducing symptoms among people with gaming disorder. Mindfulness. For folks with gaming disorder, Grace notes that a large part of treatment is learning to healthily deal with their thoughts so that they can act in a rational way consistent with their values. Mindfulness meditation practices can help you cope and develop self-awareness. The importance of this is to help the gamer to ground themselves in the presence of negative thoughts that lead to gaming or escapism, she adds. Gaming breaks. Banks Callahan notes that taking breaks and becoming aware of screen time use are two important keys to healing your relationship with gaming. Parents, teachers, and teens also need to be aware of the mental fatigue and compulsions that can come with overuse of screens and gaming. Residential programs. Detoxification programs are another long-term recovery option for those whose condition is more severe, where taking breaks may not be an easy task. This is a great option if it is beyond the point of self-control, says Banks Callahan. A residential program would benefit in helping to find new outlets, healthier hobbies, and inclusive therapy. Next steps. Internet gaming disorder is a mental health condition recognized in the ICD-11 and the DSM-5, which calls for more research. Whether or not it is officially labeled as an addiction, or goes by another name like problematic gaming, gaming can become an unhealthy obsession, negatively impact your life. If you feel a loss of control over how much time you spend playing video games, speak with a mental health professional about whether you have internet gaming disorder. You don't have to completely give up the fun community of gaming to discover more control. Instead, pursue positive options for managing excessive gaming to make sure time spent online and in-person relationships is rewarding. Video game addiction. Video game addiction, internet gaming disorder, is characterized by severely reduced control over gaming habits, resulting in negative impacts on daily functioning, including personal, social, educational, and occupational responsibilities. While millions of people play video games, only a small percentage develop video game addiction. What is video game addiction? Video game addiction, also called internet gaming disorder, is a condition characterized by severely reduced control over gaming habits, resulting in negative consequences in many aspects of your life, including self-care, relationships, school, and work. This condition can include gaming on the internet or any electronic device. But most people who develop significant gaming issues mainly play on the internet. Whether internet and video gaming addiction should be classified as an addiction or mental illness is debated among researchers. Many researchers consider video game addiction a behavioral addiction similar to gambling disorder, in which the rush of winning becomes one of the main reasons for playing. Others think this comparison to gambling is flawed because there may not be financial or material losses involved with playing video games. In addition, winning a video game may require cognitive skills and sharp reflexes, while winning at gambling is mainly a matter of chance. Regardless of this debate, any activity or habit that becomes all-consuming and negatively impacts your daily functioning can cause significant mental, social and physical health issues. It is important to seek medical care if you think your video game habits are taking over your life. Who does video game addiction affect? That video game addiction can affect children, teens, and adults, although adults are most likely to have this condition. People assigned male at birth are more likely to have video game addiction than people assigned female at birth. How common is video game addiction? Researchers estimate that video game addiction affects between 1.7% and 10% of the U.S. population. The estimated range is large because many researchers disagree on the diagnostic criteria for internet gaming disorder. Symptoms and causes. What are the signs and symptoms of video game addiction? Signs and symptoms of video game addiction, internet gaming disorder, include poor performance at school, work or household responsibilities as a result of excessive video game playing. Withdrawal symptoms, such as sadness, anxiety or irritability, when games are taken away or gaming isn't possible. A need to spend more and more time playing video games to get the same level of enjoyment. Giving up other previously enjoyed activities and/or social relationships due to gaming. Being unable to reduce playing time and having unsuccessful attempts to quit gaming despite the negative consequences it is causing. Lying to family members or others about the amount of time spent playing video games. A decline in personal hygiene or grooming due to excessive video gaming. Using video games as a way to escape stressful situations at work or school or to avoid conflicts at home. Using video games to relieve negative moods, such as guilt or hopelessness. If you or a loved one are experiencing these signs and symptoms, talk to your healthcare provider or a mental health professional. What causes video game addiction? Researchers are still trying to determine the exact cause of video game addiction and the addictive qualities of internet and video games. So far, researchers think the process of playing and winning video games may trigger a release of dopamine. Dopamine is a brain chemical, neurotransmitter, that plays a key role in several bodily functions, including pleasurable reward and motivation. Dopamine is the same neurotransmitter involved in other use disorders, including gambling disorder and substance use disorder. Recent neurological research shows similarities in the brains of people with video game addiction and substance use disorders. Diagnosis and tests. How is video game addiction diagnosed? To be diagnosed with video game addiction, internet gaming disorder, your healthcare provider may refer you to a mental health professional such as a psychologist or psychiatrist. Mental health professionals use the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, to diagnose mental disorders, which includes information about internet gaming disorder. Your mental health professional will ask questions about your medical and personal history, including gaming patterns and more. In general, for internet gaming disorder to be diagnosed, your gaming behavior patterns must be extreme enough to result in significant impairment to your personal, family, social, educational and/or occupational functioning. These patterns usually have to exist for at least 1 year. Management and treatment. How is video game addiction treated? The main treatment option for video game addiction, internet gaming disorder, is talk therapy, psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is a term for a variety of treatment techniques that aim to help you identify and change troubling emotions, thoughts and behaviors. Working with a mental health professional, such as a psychologist or psychiatrist, can provide support, education, guidance to you and your family. Specific types of psychotherapy that may benefit someone with video game addiction include cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT). This is a structured, goal-oriented type of therapy. A therapist or psychologist helps you take a close look at your thoughts and emotions. You'll come to understand how your thoughts affect your actions. Through CBT for video game addiction, you can unlearn negative and obsessive thoughts and behaviors, and learn to adapt healthier thinking patterns and habits. Group therapy. This is a type of psychotherapy in which a group of people meets to describe and discuss their problems together under the supervision of a therapist or psychologist. Group therapy is a valuable source of motivation and moral support for people who have video game addiction, especially if they've lost contact with friends or peers as a result of their video game addiction. Family or marriage counseling. This type of therapy can help educate loved ones about the disorder, create a more stable home environment. If you have another underlying mental health condition, such as depression, anxiety or attention deficits hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, your healthcare provider may recommend certain medications to treat the symptoms of the condition. Prevention. What are the risk factors for developing video game addiction? Researchers are still learning about video game addiction, internet gaming disorder. So far, they've established some factors that may put people at higher risk for developing the condition. Psychological risk factors related to internet gaming disorder include impulsivity, low self-control, anxiety. Behavioral risk factors related to internet gaming disorder include spending an increasing amount of money on gaming, increasing weekday gaming time, attending offline gaming community meetings, having a gaming community membership. Should all people who play video games or online games be concerned about developing an addiction to them? Studies show that video game addiction affects only a small number of people who play online games or video games. If you play video games, it is important to be aware of the amount of time you are spending playing them. This is especially important if you are starting to neglect other daily activities, such as hygiene, social interactions, and school and / work. These behaviors could be early signs of video game addiction. Living with. When should I see my healthcare provider about video game addiction? If you are concerned for yourself or a loved one about possible video game addiction-related problems, talk to your healthcare provider or a mental health professional. If you've been diagnosed with video game addiction, it is important to seek treatment and to stay committed to your treatment plan. You'll likely need to see your mental health provider regularly. A note from Cleveland Clinic. Millions of people across the world play video games and internet games. While the majority of people who enjoy these types of games don't develop problematic behaviors, it's possible for gaming to become all-consuming and negatively impact your daily functioning. If you are worried about your gaming habits or those of a loved one, reach out to your healthcare provider. They are always available to help you. Internet gaming. Learn about internet gaming, including symptoms, risk factors, treatment options and answers to common questions. Online games are very popular. At least one person plays video games in 2/3 of American households, according to the Entertainment Software Association. Roughly 160 million American adults play internet-based games, one recent study estimates. The games can be very entertaining, and it may be easy to get absorbed in the competition, but can they be addictive? That is a question still being debated among researchers and health professionals. But early evidence suggests that video games are one of the most addicting technologies around. In fact, new research shows that there are plenty of safe and effective treatments for video game addiction already in use. Internet gaming in DSM-5. Addiction to gaming is described in the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5-TR, which is used by mental health professionals to diagnose mental disorders. In the DSM-5-TR, the condition is referred to as Internet Gaming Disorder, IGD-1. IGD is included in the section recommending conditions for further research, along with caffeine use disorder and other conditions. The DSM-5-TR includes substance-related addictive disorders, such as alcohol, tobacco, stimulants, marijuana, opiates. Gambling disorder is the only behavioral addiction, as opposed to chemical substance use disorders identified in DSM-5-TR. If you are concerned for yourself or a loved one about preoccupation with gaming and related problems, contact your healthcare provider or a mental health professional. The DSM-5-TR notes that IGD must cause significant impairment or distress in several aspects of a person's life. This proposed condition is limited to gaming and does not include problems with general use of the internet, online gambling, or use of social media or smartphones. The proposed symptoms of internet gaming disorder include preoccupation with gaming, withdrawal symptoms when gaming is taken away or not possible, sadness, anxiety, irritability, tolerance, the need to spend more time gaming to satisfy the urge, inability to reduce playing, unsuccessful attempts to quit gaming, giving up other activities, loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities due to gaming, continuing to game despite problems, deceiving family members or others about the amount of time spent on gaming. The use of gaming to relieve negative moods, such as guilt or hopelessness. Risk having jeopardized or lost a job or relationship due to gaming. Under the proposed criteria, a diagnosis of internet gaming disorder would require experiencing 5 or more of these symptoms within a year. The condition can include gaming on the internet with others or alone. International perspectives. The World Health Organization has included gaming disorder in the 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases, ICD-11-2. It is defined in ICD-11 as a pattern of gaming behavior, digital gaming or video gaming, characterized by impaired control over gaming, increasing priority given to gaming over other activities, to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other interests and daily activities, and continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. Research is ongoing whether internet gaming should be classified as an addiction/mental disorder is the subject of much debate and a growing body of research. There is neurological research showing similarities in changes in the brain between video gaming and addictive substances. A study published in American Journal of Psychiatry in March 2017 sought to examine the validity and reliability of the criteria for internet gaming disorder, compare it to research on gambling addiction problem gaming, and estimate its impact on physical, social and mental health. The study found that among those who played games, most did not report any symptoms of internet gaming disorder. The percentage of people that might qualify for internet gaming disorder, extremely small. The research involved several studies of adults in the US, United Kingdom, Canada, Germany. They found more than 86% of young adults ages 18 to 24 and more than 65% of all adults had recently played online games. The percentages of men and women who recently played was roughly equal. However, the research is mixed on whether those who met the criteria for internet gaming disorder had poorer emotional, physical and mental health than those who did not meet the criteria. The researchers found that 0.3 to 1.0% of the general population might qualify for a potential diagnosis of internet gaming disorder. The authors suggest there is an important distinction between passionate engagement, someone enthusiastic and focused on gaming, and pathology, someone with an illness/addiction. Whether the person is distressed with his/her gaming may be the key factor distinguishing the two. However, more recent studies, including a cross-sectional study from 2022, found that the prevalence of IGD may be quite high, especially compared to other behavioral addictions. 4. Multiple studies have reported that the incidence of IGD increased dramatically during the COVID pandemic. The research and the debate are ongoing. Some argue, for example, that gaming could be a symptom of an underlying problem, such as depression or anxiety, and not a disorder or addiction itself. Even while professionals debate, individual stories in the media point to struggles and devastation from the phenomenon. A feature in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences summarizes the current debate, adding video gaming to the list of recognized behavioral addictions could help millions in need. It could also pathologize a normal behavior, create a new stigma. 5. If you are concerned about yourself or a loved one, talk with your healthcare provider or a mental health professional. New diagnosis on the way to Denmark gaming disorder. According to the Psykiatrifonden, there is a new diagnosis on its way to Denmark called gaming disorder, which deals with computer addiction to online and offline games. The forerunner of the diagnosis, internet gaming disorder, originates from the American diagnostic system DSM-5 and has existed since 2013. The American diagnosis differs from the European one by exclusively dealing with the gaming of online games. 2. Gaming disorder will be part of the European diagnosis system ICD-11, which will come into effect in 2022, when it is expected to come into force in Denmark, which is why research in the area is limited. However, there are indications that if you lose control over your gambling habits, it can have a personal, social, and physical negative effect on the quality of life or public health. In America, studies show that between 2–10% of computer gamers are addicted to online computer games. 3. While the figures are much higher in Asia. Korean studies have indicated that 50% of computer gamers were addicted. The reasons for the higher figures in Asia may partly be due to the fact that computer games are far more widespread, both as a time-consuming leisure interest and as professional use. 4. The age and gender distribution in the Asian studies shows a tendency for the greatest risk group for gambling addiction to be in the late teens, and gender-wise, men have a greater tendency to develop addiction to this than women. 4. Due to the limited research in the area, it can be difficult to distinguish between when a person goes from simply being interested and preoccupied with playing computer games to being addicted. Source L4–5. But you must have had negative behavior patterns for over 12 months. 1. Before the diagnosis can be made. The duration and frequency of the use of computer games is not decisive in itself, but the negative consequences that come with an overuse out of control are. 3. The symptoms are many, just like the research methods for computer game addiction, but the following 9 symptoms characterize computer addiction across studies and experience, and are therefore frequently used to identify the addiction. Symptoms of gaming disorder: a constant preoccupation with games, abstinences, impossible to reduce or stop time spent on computer games, escape from reality, and continued use of computer games despite obvious negative consequences. Deception, deprioritizing important relationships, lack of interest in previous interests, tolerance, According to DSM-5, a person must have experienced at least 5 of the 9 symptoms within the last 12 months in order to be diagnosed. Consequences of the diagnosis and conditions. 1. Physical inactivity by sitting still and playing for many hours a day can have negative consequences for circulation, heart, muscles and bones. 2. Mentally, the addiction can cause uncontrollable emotions such as frustration, anger, as well as experiencing difficulty concentrating and sleeping. 3. Socially, the isolation, deprioritization of social physical relationships can have negative consequences despite the fact that there are ample opportunities to be social digitally. All research so far indicates that anxiety and depression can be both a consequence of and a cause of the addiction. But due to limited research, it is not yet possible to establish a possible causal and temporal connection